we've got some Russian propaganda videos. Russia's Minister of Defense reviewing combat training for new soldiers. Whoo doggy. Okay. Yeah. Let's take a look at this. We're gonna see to what extent, if any, Russia is improving their combat training for soldiers. And remember, this is a show, so assume this is the best Russia thinks it can do. Let's look into it. What they think is what people want to see as effective combat training. Okay, so one, I want to point out they are taking a play out of Rosen's book, because here is someone in full combat gear. I assume this is reflective of the idea that, like, okay, the soldiers are training in combat gear, so you are training in combat gear. I also want to point out that here's the Russian Minister of Defense, and he is in his full dress uniform, but these other two high-ranking Russian generals or officers, they are in combat fatigues, which again, you can see that they are watching Prigozhin's video, and they are being, they're taking notes. Okay, this guy, you notice he's got a beard, he's got full combat gear, he even has active headphones, right? So is it loud or is it not? He's got active headphones on. These guys don't, which is pretty hilarious. You can also see in the back here are some more guys in suits. It's just a weird mishmash of gear. Again, it's staged and it's meant to evoke the idea that these guys are somewhat closer spiritually to the combat than they historically have been in propaganda. So you can also hear the range is ongoing. This is probably in response to allegations several months ago that Russian forces were not receiving adequate training, that many of them were firing a few dozen rounds, a few dozen magazines, or a few dozen rounds, a few magazines of total bullets before being sent to combat. So hearing these rounds going off, again, not an accident, probably almost certainly in response to credible allegations about Russia's allocation of resources. Okay, here's the thing. This is what in the US we would call a combined arms range. And in the US, what we do is it's usually a culmination of a series of events. So you'll train soldiers on their individual tasks, and then you will do a very, very prescribed, I'm going to call it like a dance, in which you have these like dances that sort of simulate combat. So you'll sit there and go, okay, first squad's going to advance to this hill. Then they're going to engage 3 targets with their M4s. Once those 3 targets are down, they're going to do a bounding movement to the next hill where they're going to take out their AT4 and they're going to engage an armored target. Once they hit the armored target, then the tank is going to advance to hill 2, and then the tank is going to fire at another tank. It's like a dance. It's actually, I think, a really shitty way to develop individual skills, because real combat is messy. You don't sit there and go, you come up with a plan, but nobody plans to the point where they're like, okay, team 1 is going to go to this individual hill. Unless you're like a SEAL team. And the SEAL teams, guess what? They don't train like this. You think they do little dances where they're like running the exact same event again and again and again. It's not how they do it. Or rather, okay, the SEALs, it's just different for a SEAL team. They'll do that, but it'll be because they're like, we know that this terrorist leader is in this compound, and we're going to simulate going into that compound again and again. And they will do it to that level of detail. But a combined arms range is not like that. There's no specific mission it's oriented around. It's just like a fantasy of some general of what might happen. Okay, I want to point something out. This is important. You notice how he put on a simulated tourniquet. But you may notice that this is not a combat application tourniquet. This is just a piece of string. This is not really that effective as a tourniquet. That conventional knot is not a great one. A good tourniquet is going to be way more cinched down. You want it to really like, you need to cut off all of the blood flow. And that's not what this is. But it's also a sign, even if this was properly applied, and don't get me wrong, in an emergency, this is fine. This is better than nothing, right? If this dude is if it's bleed out or use a piece of fabric, use the piece of fabric. But you really want to have a dedicated tourniquet. A good one you can apply with one arm. You can apply with your arm and your teeth. You can apply it. Your buddy can apply it. It's very easy. Oh, they're training RTOs, right? Very interesting. They have all these radios out here. These look exactly like US radios, like exactly like Vietnam era US radios. But that's okay. Again, this is goofy because like you would never have this in the real world, in a real military formation. Like you would have a whole day dedicated to radios, but then you would have a whole day dedicated to crew served weapons. You'd have a whole day dedicated to drag and go. Again, this is like a final exercise. Might involve all of these things working together, but that's not what this is either. Oh yeah, there we go. Somebody points out it's Singar's. They look exactly like Singar's radios. For a brief moment there, Shoigu appeared to show something resembling personality. Look at that. Look at that. He is taking lessons from Prigozhin. You briefly saw him have a sense of humor. The first time I've ever seen propaganda outlets acknowledge or have that. So, yeah, this is a sign that even when you're manufacturing a make-believe training event, Russia still leaves a lot to be desired. Anyway, okay, we had, first off, thanks to Ohms for becoming a 6-month member, reminding us that Vladimir Putin needs to go away. Yeah, that's no argument here. Okay, Natural Selection asks, what is a standard relation between daytime and nighttime combat? Pros and cons for each side. Combat at night is... So there's a couple ways to think about it. In the military, we talk about BMNT and ENT, which is BMNT and ENT are after sunrise and sunset, and they are the times that actually where you can no longer operate, right? Because we all know after the sun goes down, twilight, you can still see, you can do stuff in your yard. You can't see as far, but you can still do things. And so operations, it's important for them to know, hey, sunset is at this time, but you may have an hour where your troops can still move a little bit if they're trying to exfiltrate, if they need to seize an objective. And it's also important if you're going to fight at night because you know the enemy, even if it's after sunset, the enemy could still see fairly well. So you have day, night, and then these two transitional periods. Twilight and dawn is the non-military English term for it. And in night combat in the modern era, you have to have night vision devices. There's just no way around it. And you can do it. You can do it. It is possible to equip whole brigades with night vision. The US military does it, but it's very expensive. We'll do a little math real quick. Let's say night vision devices, right? On the open market, they're probably like $3,000-$4,000. But let's say you're the military. Let's say you get them at a bulk discount. Let's say they're $1,500. That'd be a steal, by the way. And you're talking about let's say a 5,000 soldier brigade combat team. 5,000 is about what you want because you're going to have some break. You're going to have some with soldiers. Anyway, that total is $7.5 million. That's a lot of money if you are Ukraine or Russia. It's a lot of money. So while you can have specialty units with it, it's going to be hard to have a brigade that can fight entirely at night. But the inverse is also true. If you can fight at night and your enemy can't see, your advantage can be absolutely tremendous. Again, there's a reason why the SEAL guys and some of those elite units, they sleep during the day and then they go out at night. I guess pros and cons is basically night vision devices. And night vision is still weird. You still can't see quite as far. There's still a lot of issues around. Obviously, they run on batteries. You lose some of your depth perception. It's all very awkward, but it's still orders of magnitude more comfortable to fight with night vision devices than it is to just fight at night when you're blind.